Under the same moon, we share the love, embracing the differences like hand in glove. Spreading peace and joy, it's a beautiful sight. Together we shine in each other's light. United we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world share in love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in and watching the world. We have so much to cover today. When it talks about the world scene, it's quite the thing what's happening with Donald Trump as he's trying to gain resources from all over the world. We're going to get to that today. We're going to talk about what's happening in Minnesota and also some local protesting happening around New Jersey as well. Today for News at Noon. And we welcome you guys. But we also have a special guest that's not new to this channel. She goes by the name of Candace Kelly. She's a law professor, and we're so blessed to have her with us today. Welcome in, Candace. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Mal? Good to see you as always.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So what's happening in your neck of the woods that you're dealing with there?
Well, just briefly, I am out in the field, if you will, because I'm from Morristown, New Jersey. And so ICE descended upon Morristown, I believe on January 11th, took 11 people. One of them was a high school student. This is where I was born and raised. So, I will stop by there. They also had a protest. I think that was last Saturday that I went to, and they're doing a lot of things. And I am just following up and keeping up on that story. And whenever I go home, whenever I visit my mom, I always like to check out the spot where they were picked up and see what's actually going on in the community where I was born and raised. Senator Cory Booker came out on Wednesday. He held a press conference with some of the local leaders, the local mayor, as well as a leader from the church that was right down the street from these particular detainments. And, it's just something that we should all be on the ground for if we care about our communities where we live. So that's what I am checking out today.
What kind of response are you seeing, boots on the ground?
I am seeing a lot of people who are from the high school in particular, because of the fact that there was someone from high school who was detained. That person has now been released, but it's interesting to see just the leadership, literally from 17 and 16-year-olds. They are inspired, they are compelled, they are leading the charge in this because they know that it hits home. Growing up, we used to have a much smaller contingency of people from the Latino community and the international community. But you look at the school now where I went to Morristown High, it's probably about 40 to 50% Latinos, as opposed to when I was there, it might have been in the single digits. So this is a community that has flourished. This is a community that has its own section of town. And this is a community that is now on very much high alert.
Would you say that the legacy media is covering it quite well or not that much?
Well, when I was at the protest in particular, I saw MS Now, I saw a local station from New York City, I saw a lot of people who were influencers that were there. But, the news definitely tends to go where the hot spots are. And for now, Morristown is kind of a hot spot in terms of New York, because people can just cross the bridge and get there. So I did see a lot of folks that were out there. And I heard from people from all across the country who are like, oh, aren't you from Morristown? We saw this over the weekend. But it is one of those things where if there's nothing going on, very much like, anybody who needs to click and like, then they're not going to be there. So no, I'm not seeing them all over the place. And I think that, I don't know if we spoke about this before on other recordings, but, when you cover real local news and hit the ground, that's what people really want to hear. And that's an open just venue for people to take advantage of, because there's not a lot of local coverage with the disappearance of newspapers and the disappearance of just local media. So it's a big hole. I just encourage anybody to do stuff local in their community because it is a void that needs to be filled.
All right, we're going to get started by looking at what Donald Trump had to say yesterday from Air Force One.
Hello, everybody. So we have a nice calm flight. I think the trip was great. We had a lot of good response, even from the fake news. And I think Greenland's going very well. It's in negotiation. And I think what we did today was great. It was great. It's going to be a great board. That'll be a board, I think, like no other. Right? It's a board like no other. A lot of people joining. We just went out with the letters, and a lot of people are joining. Now we have a flight back, and we'll be landing in 4 hours and 45 minutes. And I'm going to be very late for a dinner, but that'll be okay.
What are some of the elements of the Greenland concept that you can tell? There was
Really a negotiation, but it's infinity. The time limit is infinity, meaning there is no time limit. It's forever. It's you hear about 99 years, 50 years. It's forever. That was discussed. We can do anything we want. We can do military. We can do anything we want. And it's being negotiated, and let's see what happens. I think it'll be good.
So basically, he's saying that with Greenland, they can do whatever they want in accordance with the deal that he's trying to set up. What do you think about all this happening in Greenland?
Well, can we just first remark upon the fact that as long as that soundbite was, there wasn't a lot of meat on that bone, Mel. I mean, is it just me, or was there the coherency of what he said was not tight? I'm not sure exactly what he said substantively in terms of what is the deal, because that's the question that's on the table. There apparently is a potential deal in terms of what's going on in Greenland. But in terms of the questions that were asked and answered, we didn't get a lot of information. And I think that that's where we are right now. We don't know the points of this deal. I don't know if he doesn't know, but I know we don't know. And from the answers that he's giving, I can't really add or articulate what the deal is even about. We know that there's a military concern. We know that there's a concern in terms of resources and lithium and natural gases that this place certainly is known for. But in terms of the actual deal, how kind of obtuse was that answer in terms of, just its specificity? We don't know what's going on. And he kind of wavered in terms of what his answer was. Yeah, we can do this, we can do that. His numbers, he contradicted himself so many times just within that soundbite alone. Is that just me? Is that just me?
It looks like we're getting to see the art of the deal. It seems like he was talking like war. He's going to bring on some major deal, bring out the big guns just to be able to get something that he really wanted, which is control of the place. At least that's what he's saying at the moment. We're not so clear. But what do you think about his style? Do you like the art of the deal?
You know what? I think that his style is one of those that is not working right now. What people need now are specifics. Oftentimes when you have deals, you can kind of hide in the fact that, some of the deals need to be kind of done in secret, if you will, or that, you don't need to share those details. But these are things that we need to know the details about. And if he's been behind closed doors, talking with people and coming up with deal points, what are they? And why can't we know them? And I think that his style is also one of those where, it's rambling now. It's not something where we're hearing a lot of coherency. What he did towards the end of that particular interview was basically explain what he was doing for the following, for the day, how long the flight was going to be and, where it was going to land. Nothing really particular about the matters at hand. And that to me is concerning. So his style and his art of the deal, it doesn't work. We want to know specifics because this is something that is huge. It's a self-inflicted wound that he is trying to kind of nurse back but without telling anybody any details. And that is unworkable.
Okay, let's move on to another take from Donald J. Trump as well, the president.
Sweltering summer of 1776, 56 patriots gathered in a meeting hall in Philadelphia and signed their names to a document that would change the course of history forever. The Declaration of Independence, and I have it right there. What a beauty. Not only did they sever the political bonds with Great Britain, they announced a new era in human events, proclaiming that all of us are endowed by our Creator with rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Guys, take a moment, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.
In our war for independence and every generation since, thousands of American patriots have enlisted their lives in defense of that cause. From Trenton to Yorktown, from Gettysburg to Chambersburg, from the fields of France to the shores of the Philippines, and on the battlefields all over the world. Every generation of Americans has drawn meaning and been inspired by the immortal deeds of the founding generation and the nation they gave us to build and to defend. In 2.5 centuries, that's 250 years, the spirit of 1776 has carried our flag to places and heights that our founding fathers could never have dreamed. Americans forged into the frontier and blazed across the Great Plains. We tamed the Wild West. We pushed the boundaries of scientific discovery. We enlightened the world with electricity and commerce. We defeated tyrants and vanquished dictators. And we planted the American flag on the moon. We owe it all to the patriots and heroes of 1776. This is the story of America. We're excited to retell one of the greatest tales in the history of mankind, working with Hillsdale College and some of our country's brightest leaders and foremost thinkers who have contributed to the Story of America video series, including Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Dr. Larry Arnn, Eric Metaxas, Brian Kilmeade, and many others. Join us in honoring this incredible history, and together we will give America the greatest birthday celebration our country has ever seen. God bless you, and God bless America.
So what do you think about the production and how the White House is turning into like a movie theater? What do you think?
Yeah, the irony of it all. First of all, sure, the production value. This reminds me of when the Sean Combs case, and at the end they showed that 11-minute video of Sean Combs highlighting all that he had done. You can do a lot with video and music and pictures and really kind of force whatever points you want to make. So sure, the production value, if you are into it, it was going to move you. I think the irony of that, though, is that him talking about 1776 and, the pursuit of happiness and all of the things that this country was built upon in the Constitution, those particular rights are not being afforded to people when it comes to ICE, for example, who in the Constitution, if you are on American soil, you have the right to the Fifth Amendment and the due process of the 14th Amendment, but none of that is being honored. And I think that there's a really unique irony in there that just makes me really want to chuckle. It also reminds me of the fact that, so we were talking about Morristown at the beginning of this, we have a restaurant in Morristown called 1776 because George Washington descended upon Morristown and found refuge there during the cold winter months and all of this stuff. So, I'm just, being in the middle of all of this history that's around me and alive, but seeing the contradictions that are going on in the headlines it just makes me want to remind people to know their history and understand what's really going on, because the music and the pictures and the video, it can lead you down the path of emotion, and all of a sudden you're caught up, and that is not the fact. That's not the reality that we are actually in.
All right. Thank you for that great explanation. I want to share something with you in regards to his son, Barron. Sometimes you wonder, like, how much does the celebrities, how much does the president's family members, sons interact with the general public, right? I want to show you the snippet and see what you think about what happened with his son calling 911. He called the boys, all right?
All right.
Just days before his father's second inauguration last January, President Trump's teenage son Barron placed an urgent call for help to police in London. Quote, "I'm calling from the U.S., Bern Trump told an operator at the UK's 999 emergency line. I just got a call from a girl, she's getting beat up, adding, it's really an emergency. That call's transcript, released by prosecutors, now key evidence in the London trial of 22-year-old Russian national Matvey Rumietsev, accused of rape and assault, which he denies. The January attack allegedly witnessed in part by Trump, whose late-night video call to the victim was briefly answered by the defendant, whom Trump would describe in an email to prosecutors as a, quote, shirtless man with darkish hair, according to British media covering the trial. The victim reportedly praising Trump in testimony Wednesday, quote, "He helped save my life. That call was like a sign from God at that moment." Bern Trump, the only son of the president and First Lady Melania Trump, keeps a low public profile with no public speeches and few appearances. His father crediting the teen for his help finding ways to reach young voters.
He knew the youth vote.
On the night of the incident, the operator pressed Trump for details about the victim and how he knew her. Quote, "I don't think those details matter. She's getting beat
Guys, we have over 400 people here. Please hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Thank you.
up," Trump replies, adding, "I met her on social media." British media reporting that the defendant testified today that he told the victim in the fall of 2024 that he was, quote, upset about her talking to Bern Trump. Both the White House and the First Lady's office declined to comment on this case. Tom?
Gary.
So what do you think about Bern Trump? Seems to have a Russian involved and people out in London. Would you be surprised about something like this?
Wow. I think that this is interesting for so many reasons. One, because we're hearing a little more personality from him. He just isn't someone who just sits down and gives interviews. So to hear what he did, which was a good thing, I think that's good for him in terms of someone that's trying to keep a low public profile. And this comes out about him in terms of saving, a woman's life. That's how she felt. On the other hand, what we're going to get are more details. Mel, we know this is only the beginning. Anytime you have a trial, now we're into evidence. Now we are into all the fact-finding missions that attorneys do. What was he doing on the phone with this woman? Why did he not want to answer questions of the person who was on the phone trying to help the situation on 911? What are all the answers to these questions? And this is something that, trust me, by Sunday, especially with the snowstorm coming and everybody sitting inside, the internet sleuths will figure all of this out, I bet. Not a good thing in that regard, because he didn't want to give details. What are the details that he might have been trying to hide? Or maybe it was just a privacy thing. He is a private young man. Definitely more to come on this story.
Okay, speaking of attorneys, tell everyone what you do and how to contact you.
So I'm a professor of media law at Rowan University, and you can follow me at Candace Kelly TV. I also host a podcast called Not All Hood. Generally, I'm a legal commentator. So if you've seen me on air, you've seen me comment on various issues that have to do with the law or various pop culture issues.
Okay, awesome. You're very good at what you do. Now, I want to push back a little bit on a whole, because a lot of people are giving Donald Trump a lot of flack, but Obama also was pretty harsh when it came to immigration as well. I want to show you a snippet of something he said many years ago, but the Democrats were okay with it. I'm going to show this to you.
Last time we spoke, you said that you weren't king, you were president. There were only certain things you could do unilaterally. As time goes on, 1,000 deportations on average a day. People are wondering, and our Twitter feeds. And
did you hear that? He was knocking out 1,000 a day. Donald Trump hasn't even reached that goal yet, right?
Yeah. Though, albeit done in a different way, but yes.
Okay, let me get
Facebook feeds. That's the question everybody asks. Won't you at least consider unilaterally freezing deportations for the parents of deferred action kids?
Yeah. Here's the problem that I have, Jose, and I've said this consistently. My job in the executive branch is supposed to be to carry out the laws that are passed. Congress has said, here's the law when it comes to those who are undocumented, and they allocate a whole bunch of money for enforcement. And what I have been able to do is to make a legal argument that I think is absolutely right, which is that given the resources we have, we can't do everything that Congress has asked us to do. What we can do is then carve out the DREAM Act folks, saying young people who have basically grown up here are Americans that we should welcome. We're not going to have them operate under a cloud, under a shadow. But if we start broadening that, then essentially I would be ignoring the law in a way that I think would be very difficult to defend legally. So that's not an option, and I do get a little worried.
Candace, what do you think is the big difference as to, I don't think people were given such pushback when Obama was moving out 1,000 people per day. What's the difference with now?
Yeah, well, notice what he said, that he is very careful and measured about following the law, that the DREAM Act was in place. So therefore, he didn't want to do anything that goes against the laws that are already in place. What we are seeing now is new laws, new precedent actually being created in real time as memos are being sent out, for example, in terms of warrants. All right. The talk now is about whether or not, warrants are needed in terms of entering someone's home. That's something that's brand new. That's something that you have a judicial warrant, you have an administrative warrant. They are saying that, hey, only an administrative warrant is necessary in order to gain entry into someone's house between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. And we can actually knock down the doors. Now, this is something that manifests into reality. That is new laws that are being created on the backs of the process of taking people in. That's a big difference than looking at the laws that are on the books, honoring them, and figuring out what we need to do about those who are here illegally. So it's about process. That is the difference. It's about process, and it's about precedent that is being created along the way. I mean, we know you need a warrant in order to come in and search someone's home. If only an administrative warrant is used, as this recent memo that just came out said, that's going to change the whole face of things. That means you only need signatures from ICE agents, not a judge. A big difference, much easier to get, a lot scarier for people who are at home. I mean, and you do have to assert your rights, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be taken in. That is the difference. Process and looking at the laws that are on the book to honor it, as opposed to creating laws as you go along that eventually become precedent.
When you started talking, I started looking for my books and my pencil. I needed a grade 2 pencil because I felt like I was in the classroom.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but one of the things too that people have to remember, and this is good information for everybody. This isn't just good information for people of color and who have accents. I mean, you can be white. It doesn't matter these days. You should know that 1, you do have the right to an attorney if ICE comes to see you. 2, you do have a 4th Amendment right, so that you need to ask for a warrant if they come to your door. You do have the right to actually refuse to opening the door. Does that mean that they're not going to kick it in? We don't have kind of we can't control that, but probably will happen. But when you should always have your license, any ID, anything, just so you can make your case along the way. You could be at the laundromat, like the folks where I grew up in Morristown, New Jersey. You could be at church. You could be anywhere, and something could go down. It could happen to you. It could happen to me if we are in the wrong place and don't have the right information. So always be armed with information and knowledge and the rights that you have.
All right, guys, take a moment, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. I just want to warn you, we're going to be talking about Don Lemon. And believe you, a lot of people in the audience are saying, lock him up. That's what they're saying. Lock him up. He shouldn't have been in the church. So I want to get your viewpoint after I show a video. But first, we're going to talk about Bill Clinton, and they're going after him for contempt. Is he going to sit behind bars? Let's check this out, and then I'll have your point of view.
All right.
Bipartisan display, advancing resolutions to hold former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress. Last week, both Clintons defying subpoenas from the GOP-led House Oversight Committee, skipping testimonies tied to the panel's investigation into convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. 9 committee Democrats yesterday siding with Republicans to hold Bill Clinton in contempt. 3 Democrats voting to hold Hillary Clinton in contempt, too. But the Clintons argue the subpoenas are legally invalid, saying they were treated differently than roughly a half dozen other witnesses not allowed to submit written statements, even offering a meeting between Bill Clinton and the committee's top Republican and Democrat, which was also rejected.
There's no reason for us to take James Comer seriously.
Democrats calling for Attorney General Pam Bondi to be held in contempt, pointing out the Department of Justice blew past its legal deadline more than a month ago to release all of its Jeffrey Epstein files. Only a fraction of the DOJ's million.
So let me ask you, does this mean that when a person is held in contempt that they basically are looking at jail time?
Yeah, when you are held in criminal contempt by Congress, that equals jail time. It's what happened to Steve Bannon. So when you refuse a subpoena, I mean, subpoena is the ultimate way to get someone into court. When you have a subpoena, that generally makes people say, uh-oh, I know that maybe a prosecutor has asked me politely to come and testify in court, and I said no. A subpoena means, no, you actually have to come. And if you don't come, there's going to be a problem. And this is the problem. You can be held in contempt. Now, you can come with a subpoena and actually, plead the fifth. What the Clintons are saying is, look, why are you even bothering us? We don't have anything to do with any of this. It's selective persecution, and we're not coming. And that's actually their choice, but they are both attorneys and they know the consequences. When you are held in criminal contempt, you can go to jail. It happened to Steve Bannon.
Wow. So back in the day when Donald Trump used to chant, lock her up, crooked Hillary, you think there may be a chance of this actually coming to reality?
You know what? I don't. I think that it is all a part of, everybody wants to stir their base in many ways. I think Democrats and Republicans are playing it both ways in that, what do we need to do to stir our base, Anytime you mention the Clintons, you are stirring the base. Anytime, either one of them. Now you have both of them. This base is being stirred. People are paying attention. And this is kind of more of what we've seen in terms of, let's wake up a sleeping lion. We haven't heard from the Clintons in a while. Most of the time I see anything about Clinton, he's in some, he's in the Hamptons or walking downtown in some village or by a lake. To bring them in here kind of seems out of the ordinary. I am not sure what they are going to add to this. Yes, there were 25 trips on the plane, on Epstein's plane that Bill Clinton took. But in terms of the actual connection of any wrongdoing, why are we hearing from them? That's what we need to hear. And normally, even before you get to Congress or any case, the Court of Public Opinion will find out all of those connections in terms of putting some guilt upon this couple. I just haven't seen it yet.
Okay, thank you. Before we move on, though, to Don Lemon, and thank you for breaking that down. On Wednesday, I was at the Mount Sinai down in Manhattan covering the nurses on strike. A lot of them are actually here in the comments today. What do you say?
Wow.
What do you say for them having to go out there in 20-degree weather, freezing fingers and toes and everything else, and be out there all day just trying to get the powers that be to do the right thing?
So, sometimes the work that has to be done is not, most of the time, it is not easy, pretty work. And I think that the power of protest still is alive and well. The power of assembling in numbers still is alive and well. That's why you and I are talking about it now. Oftentimes, even people who are legislators or lawmakers or people who are making decisions that will affect their lives, they are listening, they are looking. And, a lot of stuff happens on social media, but when people actually, as you said, get dressed, go out there in the cold weather, these people are serious. And I think that has a lot of social currency, and it has a lot of currency in terms of people listening to them. I say more power to them. I say that sometimes this is what it takes. More than likely or not, this is what it takes in terms of getting the attention of people so that they can be actually heard. It's not going to happen with them sitting at home. It's not going to happen with lobbyists. It happens when people hit the streets and they get coverage and people say, my goodness, look at these numbers. They're serious.
Okay, I'm pretty sure they're going to enjoy your kind words. Joseph in the audience says, if you are here illegally, you are not eligible for due process. The Constitution is only valid for U.S. citizens. What say ye?
If you are innocent, he should go back and check it out. If you are on American soil, yes, you do have that 5th and 14th Amendment. I'm not saying that all of the people who can get the process in terms of going through, being heard, listening to the evidence. I'm not saying they're going to stay. I'm saying that they are due a process of going through the system. Now, they still might have to leave and be shipped out, but you can't just take someone from their home and off the streets and put them on a plane and throw them to Nicaragua. They have to have a process that where evidence is heard, where they are heard, where they can face their accuser. You cannot just take a person and rip them off the streets. So I understand what he's saying, and that maybe the end result is that they shouldn't be here, but they have to go through a process first. I always think of due process like this. It is a process that is due to everyone on American soil. Doesn't mean that, you're not going to jail or that you're not going back to some country where they think you belong. It just means that you have a right to go through the system.
Okay, remind those in the audience what you do for a living.
So I'm a professor of media law at Rowan University. I'm also a legal commentator. I also co-host a podcast. You can find me at Candace Kelly, Candace Kelly TV on Instagram. And I like informing people about the law. I find that when people know about the law and their rights, they're actually just better citizens. They're actually just better human beings, and they're actually better in terms of being able to manage their lives. It is scary still when a police officer stops me, but when I calm down and think about, but it hasn't happened in a long time, I must say, but when I calm down and think about it, I say to myself, you know the law, so it puts me at ease to understand. Again, that doesn't mean that something crazy may not happen, but at least I know my rights, and it makes me feel more empowered about going about my business.
Okay, very good. So it's quite possible that Don Lemon has put himself under the tentacles of Donald Trump, especially when he talks about Donald Trump every day. He's given him an angle that may not be pretty. Let's check this out.
This, Phil, the reports are that this magistrate judge in Minneapolis has declined to sign a warrant for his arrest, apparently not persuaded by the criminal complaint filed by the DOJ that attempted to make a
Guys, we have 800 people on YouTube alone. Please hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Thank you.
showing of probable cause. I'm just going to guess that it would have been the same 2 charges as we've seen against the earlier 2, one under the FACE Act, which if it's a first violation is a misdemeanor, and one under the Klan Act, which is a conspiracy against rights, somebody else's attempt to exercise their civil rights.
Well, this reeks of politics. I can smell it here in Atlanta all the way coming from Minnesota today. Trespassing is a crime. The First Amendment does not give Don Lemon a shield against violating the rights of other people. Merely holding a microphone and calling yourself a journalist might make you a journalist within the meaning of the Fourth Amendment, but it doesn't mean that you get to use it as a defense to violate other people's First Amendment rights. It's important to understand, Megan, magistrate judges, federal magistrate judges, they are not appointed by any president. They're not confirmed by the Senate. They are hired as contractors by the judges who are the appointed judges on the court.
So what do you think in regards to this so far? They're looking at, I guess, the 2 individuals that were picked up by the FBI yesterday are facing, I guess, the FACE Act and also the one involving the Ku Klux Klan or what have you. You could probably break it down more. But what do you think about Donald Trump, this magistrate, not Donald Trump, Don Lemon, right?
Another Donald, right?
Another Don, right? Another Don, this magistrate pretty much not willing to sign off on.
Well, listen, we talked before about precedent, and that's why this is very important. What judge in their right mind is actually going to go after a journalist, right? Again, I know that there's some details that we need to pay attention to, but are you going to have the Department of Justice go after a journalist for actually doing their job? Speaking with people, he spoke to the pastor, he spoke to people who were in the congregation. Everyone knows that Don Lemon is a journalist. Why would a judge put those guidelines and constraints on a journalist so then it could happen again? Now you've got a precedent case. Plus, what world do we live in where the First Amendment is revered in court systems? I don't care what anybody says when it comes to journalists, when it comes to protecting sources, when it comes to artistic expression, even when it comes to free speech. We know that there are limitations, like you can't defame someone and you can't yell, fire in a crowd theater as it goes. But you have someone on the ground who was actually interviewing people about a story. How else are you going to get news out to the people? It makes no sense. And why is the Department of Justice even involved in on-the-ground community news? There was no riot. There was no fire. There was no fighting. There was reporting by Don Lemon. I don't think that judge would have been able to go to his car safely if he actually decides something other than what he did. It made no sense. It made no sense.
Wow. They're saying that it's perhaps the Department of Justice will continue to try by having him indicted. Is that possible?
Oh, yeah. The Department of Justice can try to do whatever they want. And who knows, they might even come up with an indictment. It's very easy to get an indictment, right? What you're saying with an indictment is that, hey, we've got, probable cause and reason to believe that this can be proven guilty or not guilty. Like, it's not on its face something that we're saying no. That means that this is allowed to move on the court system. If you get the right people, which would be the wrong people for Don Lemon, but if you get a certain type of person to be on the grand jury to give that indictment, it might happen. But honestly, this is ridiculous. You'd have all types of people. You'd have the ACLU. You'd have every journalist. Republicans and Democrats alike should look at this and understand, whether you are at Fox or whether you are at MS Now, this is terrible precedent to say to a journalist that we can actually, as the Department of Justice, who's talking about Greenland, and someone was killed in Minnesota, and you're worried about Don Lemon? Is Don Lemon that type of a threat to the fabric of America because he's on the ground asking questions to people who are part of a protests which are also protected by the First Amendment? That makes no sense. Anybody, Republican, this is something that should be a bipartisan issue. Republicans and Democrats alike should understand that this does not make sense when you are someone with the mic. And guess what, Mel? Everybody has a mic these days if you're on social media. So this threatens everybody, because everybody considers themselves or would like to be, this reporter and this information on the ground. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous.
Okay, let me push back on you a little bit, though. Letitia
Okay.
James Comey, Bolton, right? All of
Yes.
these people, Donald Trump is coming for their head. And when they asked President Trump, hey, what do you think about it? Oh, I don't know much about it. But they did some wrong things, right? So Don Lemon is known. You could easily see that he follows Donald Trump. He talks negative about him. It's not a comfortable place to put yourself in that position, right? When you say that Trump is going to push this, whether he do so silently or not.
Okay, so let's look at what Don Lemon does. Don Lemon reports on the news, and sometimes when Donald Trump or anybody else in the news says something that is ridiculous, doesn't make sense, or that people are pushing back on, well, that's news. And Don Lemon can report on something that looks ridiculous or something that looks nonsensical, and he has an opinion in the First Amendment to maybe say, you know what, I think Donald Trump is kind of stupid. That's his First Amendment right. He hasn't been defamed. At the most, feelings could be hurt. But in terms of the law and what journalists do, the other thing is that your opinion is protected by the First Amendment also. Everybody look up Ullman versus Evans. This is where we get the 3-part test for opinion. Don Lemon's show is mostly an opinion show. That is what he has been doing for probably the last, 15 years of his career. Opinion shows. Opinions are protected. There's too much inside the world of jurisprudence that protects Don Lemon in anything that he says, even if it's something that hurts someone's feelings. Now, if we cross over into the world of defamation, that's totally different. And I don't know, maybe that's coming down the pike. But has he said anything that is defamatory? We would have heard about it already. He has been giving his opinion and echoing the opinions of his huge base. And I think that in and of itself is a threat. Whenever you give somebody a mic, whenever you have people that you can galvanize around you, you really are a leader of sorts, because now you can get into the minds of those who are listening to you and respect you and change their minds. That's a lot of power they don't want Don Lemon to have.
Okay, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to plead the fifth, but if it was you out there, would you have gone inside the church, whether to observe, document it, film it, or protest?
Yeah, I think the best way to do this, and I deal with this a lot in terms of, what's public property, what's private property, the rules. Sometimes as a journalist, what we say is, we'll just deal with the consequences after, but you got to get the story. He had every right to go in there, by the way, to sit and listen as a congregant. You know what I mean? And then once he's in there, he could gather information. So, there are a lot of ways that it could have been done. The way that he did it was not incorrect. Now, there's a question of, private property, public property. Was this trespass? All of that's to be determined. But I think the bigger picture is that it's Don Lemon. And that was the problem that that Trump and the Department of Justice are having a problem with. I don't think it's the reporting. I don't think it's the fact that, he's not allowed to come and sit inside and maybe talk to people. It's Don Lemon. And as you said, Don Lemon has a history of verbally giving his opinion about Donald Trump in a way that has hurt his feelings.
Okay, very good. For the sake of time, we must keep moving. Did you hear what happened with Russia and Ukraine? The people actually, the climate is much colder than here in our region, New Jersey, New York, right? Then look what's happening here. I want to show you this here.
Kyiv's night sky lit up early on Tuesday, then was plunged into darkness by Russian drone and missile strikes, leaving thousands of residential buildings in the Ukrainian capital without power in temperatures well below freezing. Most of the buildings cut off on Tuesday had only recently had power restored after a similar barrage on January 9th. Hundreds of residents spent the night sheltering in the Kyiv metro.
It's tiring, of course it's tiring. How can it not be? When you work during the day and then can't sleep at night. It's exhausting for your nervous system.
We don't come down here very often, but today we were scared because there were several ballistic explosions, not just one.
The attack wasn't restricted to the capital. Hundreds of drones.
I had to stop the show. It was 777 people here. That's pretty cool. Watching the world, 777, right? That was amazing.
All right, nice numbers.
So what do you think about that in regards to the people are freezing cold and the bombs keep dropping, but then Donald Trump allows Putin to join this whole peace deal? What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I think that this is just highly indicative of the way that Donald Trump has been functioning lately. Again, I think that there is a big elephant in the room that has to be discussed if you are talking about the decision-making process with Donald Trump, and that is whether or not he's actually well. And this is just my opinion, but the way that he is running things, the way that he is responding, the way that he meanders verbally, it's really hard to take some of his decisions very seriously. And that's why this seems like such a ridiculous situation in terms of, well, why is he cozying up with this person and this is happening at this time? But a lot of it just goes along with the nonsensical acts that we've been seeing for, I would say that, well, for a long time, but especially recently. It seems that things are getting progressively worse in terms of how he is just functioning health-wise. and that might just be me, if I could volley that back to you, does it seem like he is completely healthy?
You know what? One of my business partners, near and dear to me, I think we were doing business while he was around 80 years old. He's an old man, you know,
Uh-huh.
and I expect that from an elderly man around 80 years old. He's just not going to have it. In fact, a lot of people, I think, in their 50s and 60s are struggling to remember things too. So I do have a little grace in regards to, you know, as far as him falling asleep always constantly at the White House.
Yeah.
He's up at 3 o'clock in the morning on Twitter or on his platform or what have you. So I can understand that. But I think it's a common thing though, really.
Yeah, I think that the physicality of it all might be interfering with some of his policy making decisions. I think that's the simplest way for me to put it. So that when I see headlines that just don't make sense, I think about all of the parties that are involved. And when I look at the situation that you just showed and the video, that's really what comes to mind.
Yeah, definitely. I put out a video the other day where he actually said the Supreme Court has ended the presidency, and everybody thought it was AI, but it was actually a flub from Donald Trump. But I mean, everybody makes those type of mistakes. Maybe not to that magnitude where you're saying that the Supreme Court ended your whole presidency, but
Right, right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, he did a speech this week, and he said, when I was president, and you just gotta wonder, and he mentioned the wrong country. Again, we have flubs. He's got a tight schedule. He's got to be tired. As you said, there's some give and take for someone who's that age, but I consider that often when I think about things that he's doing.
Right, right. I think I'm with the group of people that feel like maybe they should consider an age limit when it comes to the presidency, but that's just my little 2 cents, Maybe that conversation needs to be had,
Yeah, in this age where everyone is trying to stay younger, we've talked about precedent. I don't know what type of precedent that would set, but but listen, you're running the country, one of the most highly regarded countries, perhaps, or not, in the world. I don't know. Maybe that age limit isn't a bad thing.
Think about it. Motor vehicle, they have parameters in place that once you get to a certain age, they start considering factors, right? So it only makes sense. I mean, it's a logical way of looking at life, right? We're all fragile, especially the older we get. I would think that's like a common thought for most people.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, we do put age on certain things. We absolutely do. We absolutely do. Which is why we say, hey, here's an age where you can actually retire because, well, you're getting older. So you're right. We do have age perimeters and guidelines that everybody has seemed to, accept on some level. And to be leader of the free world, yeah, might be a good idea. I think you might have convinced me a little bit more.
The argument has been made, right? That's what you said.
Yeah.
You study arguments, so there you have one. Sitting in court all the time, as much as we do, we hear nothing but arguments all day long. So much so, I fall asleep to arguments in court.
Yeah, some people, to understand everyone should go to court. I've said this on your show before. It's free. You might have to show an ID or something, or you might not. But go to court, see what your tax dollars are doing to you. Some parts of it are exciting, but a lot of it is downtime. You are correct.
All right. You know what? We reached our time. I know you have to keep moving. You're covering the protest. Maybe you could come back and tell us how it's working out. Maybe you could get us a little footage. I'm not sure, but whatever it takes, whatever you can do, I know you'll do it well.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. The protest already happened, but I do have footage of it, and certainly I'm going to come back on as normal when I see you, and I'll have updates for you. I thank you so much.
Thank you kindly for being here. You're far much appreciated. Yes, indeed.
All right. You take care. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Thank you. All right, guys. Let's see here. We have an issue. Okay, here we go. All right. So it was nice having Candace on today. She does a marvelous job. She teaches the law, and we were able to have her come on and speak at a high level in regards to these legal matters. Now we're going to move on to a different interview, the latest interview of Donald Trump. I think this interview is very telling. It helps you to understand where the president is heading, what he's thinking, and it helps us to navigate through life because he is the leader of the free world, I must say. Let's go.
Continues to be ground zero for the left's war against your deportation efforts. Just today, you saw the Department of Justice issue a number of subpoenas against Democratic officials there, Governor Tim Walz, the mayor of Minneapolis, and the Attorney General Keith Ellison. What is the status of Minneapolis, and what is your administration doing to ensure that your deportation efforts can continue in that city and around the country?
I think you have two problems. Number one, you have $19 billion worth of stolen money. At least, I think the number is going to be much higher.
$19 billion in Minnesota. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that's outrageous? Are you very upset, even though you may not live in that state? But how do you get to that much money? Tell us how you feel about it.
And you have that in California. You have it in other states also, I believe, when you go through it. So that's a big problem. And then you have the agitators, anarchists. You know, I watched sort of everything. I see it all. And I see people screaming, shame, shame. You know, this is...
Okay, $25 to the first person that can define anarchist in the comment section. I'll have Stella or Thomasina check it out. If you could point that out to me. Whoever can explain it best gets the $25 into their Cash App ASAP.
Not people that are like living in Minnesota. These are professional, paid people. They're like actors. I mean, I watched the guy last night in the church. He was, and not just on.
Yes, I will be attending Tyler Robertson's trial. I'll be boots on the ground for that, so stay tuned.
Don Lemon's a loser. But I watched the guy last night in the church.
For those of you that may be new to the channel, I attend so many different trials. I attended yours truly, Donald Trump's trial in New York City, where he received 34 felonies. I was at Sean Diddy Combs' trial. And guys, I'm in the main courtroom actually sitting behind these individuals, taking notes, coming back to report on it. But Sean Diddy Combs, Harvey Weinstein. Right now I'm covering Luigi Mangione. I was in the main courtroom also for Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores. It was quite the chaos. I would say that's the biggest trial that I've covered so far is Nicolas. Well, it was actually the hearing. The trial is coming down the line, but that was a tumultuous place where there were so many Venezuelans there. In fact, a lot of them follow this channel now because I was out there covering it so well. Thank you guys, too, for your support.
This guy's a professional guy, and he actually admits to it. He gets paid a lot of money to go and cause trouble. And you see that. What they don't see.
And by the way, we have a lot of the nurses here that are protesting in New York City. Well, they're on strike. We welcome you guys. We support you heavy here at Watching the World. Thank you. And on Sunday, we're going to have a special show with Calvin Johnson at 7 p.m. And we're really going to break down the nurses and support them for their strike at a very high level with our criminal defense attorney, Calvin Johnson, at 7 p.m. I look forward to all the nurses being here, and thank you for those that have subscribed. It's so amazing.
Is that ICE gets rid of murderers, drug dealers, Tren de Aragua, I mean, the worst gang in the world, anywhere in the world, MS-13, Tren. But these are the worst gangs, and they get rid of them. They take them out. And I say, something's wrong when a place like Minnesota, which is a good place, it's got a horrible governor, it's got horrible people. This Ilhan Omar is horrible. I mean, she comes from a country that doesn't even have a government. They have nothing. And she comes here and she lectures us on the Constitution. She's got constitutional rights. She's just horrible. Somebody said she's worth $30 million. Well, therefore, she's obviously a very dishonest person. And she should be looked at for that. So you have
So basically, the argument is these individuals, before they go to Congress, right, they have maybe a basic amount of funds, but then after a couple of years of serving, they end up with millions of dollars, and people are saying it needs to be investigated, including the president.
a couple of things. You have the money thing, and then you have the all of the fake nonsense going on and screaming. The people, they're so professional. They hold their cameras up high, and It's a terrible thing going on in Minnesota.
Well, you've threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act if the governor did not get things under control. They clearly don't have things under control and don't seem to want to get them under control. You have these activists storming churches now, and they're still impeding these investigations of child sex offenders, murderers. At a press conference today at the White House, you held up a number of photos of the people that ICE has been deporting. The Insurrection Act would allow you, it requires essentially that if federal law cannot be enforced, you can invoke it and it would allow it to be enforced. So where are you with that threat, and do you still think it's necessary?
I don't think it is yet. It might be at some point. It is actually very common. You know, with me, they'll make it like a big deal, but it's been used by over 40% of the presidents during their term. It's something
I'm going to drop the link in case someone wants to come up and have a chat. Please be respectful. Make sure you're dressed appropriately. We don't want to do anything that goes against YouTube terms. We enjoy what we have. We don't want to violate it. So I'll drop the link. Feel free to come up to share your thoughts. But we don't want any crazy language or anything of the sort. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the chat right now in case you want to come in and share your thoughts. Okay, let's get back to it.
I would have no problem doing if I think we needed it. We have great people at ICE. You know, they're strong people, they're smart people, and I don't think it's necessary yet. But, you know, I see they're building up like, oh, if he ever did that. Over 40% of the presidents used it. Some presidents used it actually many times, and it does make life a lot easier. You don't go through the court system. You don't, you know, it's just a much easier thing to do. But I don't think we need it at this point, and hopefully we won't need it. But I would not have any problem with invoking it if we needed it.
Well, as you pointed out, this is not just a problem in Minnesota. It's been a problem in Los Angeles and elsewhere. There's a new governor across the river in Virginia, Democrat Abigail Spanberger. The first thing she did when she came into office was repeal cooperation between ICE agents and local law enforcement. So what is your message or response to governors like her now deciding they're not going to work with ICE?
Well, I hope there are no problems, because if there are, she's not going to get it corrected very easily, and that's a bad signal. You know, that's not where the country is. The country doesn't want to see murderers and drug dealers and gang members and all coming from other countries and just stay in their area. Take a look at Washington, D.C. As you know better than anybody, it was very, very unsafe a year and a half ago, because now it's a year.
So let's see the pulse of those in the audience. What do you guys think? Do you think under Donald Trump, the American population is much safer now? Do you feel safer when you go out shopping or in your day-to-day life since Donald Trump has instituted specifically the National Guard and his agenda? Put a 1 in the chat if you think you feel you're in a safer place. Put a 2 if you feel like there's no difference.
So I have to go a little more than a year ago, but it was a very, very unsafe place, and now it's totally safe. It's a beautiful, I mean, people are walking with their kids to restaurants. They meet their husband at a restaurant. The restaurants were all closing. Now the restaurants are all opening. The place is beautiful. And you have good-looking, solid military people walking around. It's actually, I think it's almost like an enhancement. Everybody feels safe. Washington, D.C. is a different place. If you go to, well, it's happening in Louisiana, where you have, you know, we put some of the...
So most people are saying, too, that is not okay. So you don't agree with the president.
Security in Louisiana, go to Memphis, go to different places. I mean, wherever we put it, it's good. Now, even in Chicago, we got the crime down a little bit. We did just a little minor version of it, but we get no cooperation. And
by the way, Sassy Mo, we're going to be talking about how ICE now can enter. We're going to talk about the warrant policy. When they're after someone, they can really pretty much come in and take over the place. So we're going to get to that later, too. Thank you.
If I were a Democrat governor, I would say, boy, would I love to have Trump come in here so I could show some good numbers. But anywhere we go, everywhere we go, it's good. And by the way, the numbers are way down in Minnesota. You know, if you go to Minnesota, the numbers are down because of us. But it's like pulling teeth.
Well, one of the first things that you did when you came into the White House for the second time is you signed the Lake and...
So if you guys don't agree with what the president is saying about crime, are you saying that he's just making things up, that he's just lying? I'm just trying to understand what's going on here.
Riley Act after Laken Riley was murdered by a criminal illegal alien here from Venezuela. Why do you think that Democrats are defending these types of people? What's the reasoning behind that?
Well, it's not like defending. It's like Laken Riley is, you mentioned the name and they don't even want to talk about it. You see it at State of the Union addresses. You introduce people, their young child was killed by a horrible.
Okay, just so you know, most people are saying that the president is lying. Okay, so that's the general consensus right now. Okay.
Horrible human being, and the Democrats sit there and they won't clap, they won't acknowledge. The mother and father stand up, they're devastated, and the Democrats are just sitting there. They won't smile, they won't clap. There's something wrong with them. Maybe it's Trump derangement syndrome, but no, there's something wrong with them. You introduce a family whose child was just lost, and they're sitting there and they're just stone-faced. It's a meanness. They're a mean group of people.
You're on your way to Davos this week.
Right.
There's a lot of talk about Greenland, of course. European leaders are not so happy about your increased pressure to acquire Greenland. For the average American who maybe doesn't understand why the United States is pursuing this piece of property,
right.
What do you say to them? Why do we need Greenland?
It's located in such a place that is literally so important for national security. When you come to Russia, when you come to China, a lot of Chinese boats, a lot of Russian, ships, military ships. It's in a location that is very important for our national security and also for the international security of the world, literally. It's a very big piece of land. It's really cold, got a lot of ice on it. So it's not like we're going to build a nice real estate development or anything.
No golf course on Greenland?
Well, I don't see a golf course. You'd have to wear a lot of very heavy clothing. We're not going to set any records with golf, but I will tell you that it's very important to the United States. And as an example, we're building the Golden Dome, which we're going to have a dome over the country. If somebody wants to shoot missiles, it'll knock them out of the air like matchsticks. It'll go very nicely. It's amazing. Ronald Reagan wanted this many, many years ago. He was ahead of his time. But the problem is you didn't have equipment that worked. Today, the equipment is unbelievable. You've seen it. I mean, we can knock a missile coming at thousands of miles an hour. It's like, and you get literally 100% of them.
What he's saying is true because we saw what happened when Iran was shooting missiles at Israel, and they applied this method and it worked, right?
The technology is so good. So we're building a Golden Dome, and having Greenland makes it a much more effective Golden Dome.
So you're saying Greenland is essential for the security of the United States and the free Western world for
Correct.
the sake of missile defense.
That is correct.
And that's why we need Greenland.
That is correct. And even beyond missile defense, but it is so important for the Golden Dome. It's so important for just national and actually international security.
So the European Union has said that in response to your pursuit of Greenland, they will launch a, quote, trade bazooka at the United States. What do you think that means, and what is your response to Europe threatening some kind of trade war with
I don't
the United
think they
States?
know what it means, actually, but they already do trade bazookas. They fine our companies billions of dollars, like Apple and Google and lots of them, 15, 16, 17 billion dollars. And you should.
Guys, take a moment, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Also, turn on your notifications so you can see when we go live.
Be doing that. We just signed a deal with them, and it's a good deal. It's a big deal. And had we not had tariffs, we wouldn't have been able to sign anything like it. But they need that deal. So I don't think they really know what a bazooka means. And, if see anything they do.
A lot of people are saying that the reporter is a bootlicker and that she's pro-Trump. She's very biased. What do you guys think?
With us, I'll just meet it. If all I have to do is meet it, and it's going to go ricocheting backward. But we're not looking to that. We'll probably be able to work something out, possibly even during the next few days in Davos.
So looking back here at home domestically, last year you worked with Congress very closely, Republicans in charge of both the House and the Senate, and of course you're in the White House, and you worked with them on the big, beautiful bill. For 2026, especially in a midterm election year, what is your goal for Congress in terms of getting your agenda through? What is on the agenda? What expectations do you have for Congress?
Well, one of the things I'd like to do, you know, we pass so many executive orders. I have great executive orders that are really common sense and good and have, I mean, like water coming out of a sink.
Savage says only 39% of Americans support Trump, and ICE, you are going down. Thank you, Savage, for the support.
The water wouldn't come out. They had all sorts of ridiculous restrictions. I took all of that off. Coming out of the shower head, you'd stand under a shower, there's no water coming out. So I passed so many things like that. Straws. They don't have to be paper anymore. They don't have to melt in your mouth. So I passed so many different things like that, and much more important things, but like that. They're important, the quality of life. And I'd like to have all of that confirmed by Congress if we can. And we've done a lot of it. We've done probably 35, 40%. I'd like to get them all confirmed, every one of them.
So you want your executive orders codified in law, so to speak?
Ideally, we get them codified, and we get them codified soon, yes.
So the mortgage rates are down in terms of the economy. Inflation has slowed. Gas prices are down. The budget deficit.
Guys, please no spamming in the chat. It just consumes the entire comment section.
Has been cut significantly by tariffs.
These are very good things, Katie.
What do you think the economy is going to look like now that the legislation from last year will be kicking in and the Biden agenda will be no longer in place?
So we have thousands of businesses being built right now. Because of tariffs, we've taken in so much money. And what's happened is, in order not to pay the tariff, they don't have to pay it. All they have to do is build their business here. So all over the world, they're coming in. They're building car plants, AI plants, massive buildings and small buildings, but literally thousands of them. We've never had anything like it. And you've seen that. $18 trillion is coming in. No country's ever been even close to that. And I think it's just going to be an explosion of success. I would be very surprised if it wasn't. There's never been anything like $18 trillion. You go back, if you see $2 trillion or $3 trillion, that's a lot. We're at 18. And by the way, that's true.
Okay, Crystal says she's fangirling. It's bizarre. Lots of giddy smiling. Yuck. All right, thank you.
11 months. I assume I'm going to add something for the last month, which was now we just finished our 12th month. So we're going to be over $18 trillion. There's never been anything like that in the history of our country.
So when you're talking to these companies who are investing in the United States, saying they're going to build new plants, how do you ensure that they continue that investment after you leave office?
Ruth Rivera says we should get rid of this president's seat. He's a big fat liar. Save our country from this lunatic. Okay, thanks, Ruth.
Similar to your executive orders getting codified by Congress. How do you ensure that those deals actually come through?
Well, once they build the plant, they're sort of here. You know, they're spending billions of dollars to build a plant. They're going to be here. That means, you know, they're not going anywhere. They can't put it on their back and bring it over.
Village says, I think she's doing a good professional journalistic job, respectful to the president. Okay, thanks.
To another country. So I think the big thing is
and yes, openings, this is live.
to get it built now during my administration. And once they build, you know, they're building a building that costs $2 billion, $10 billion in some cases, and in some cases 50 and 60 billion, you know, the AI. And with AI, I'm letting them build their own electric plants so they can build the electric, because, you know, creating that kind of electricity for us, for China, okay, but we're beating China badly on AI. We're doing incredibly well. The approval process is going so quickly. You know, if you look at the approvals, it's such a big deal getting that. We have Lee Zeldin, who's done a fantastic job, but all of those houses in California that burned down, they had their approvals within 2 weeks, federal approvals. Federal approvals are tougher than the local approvals. Typically. We had everybody done in 2 weeks. The whole place is finished, ready to go. That was a year ago, more than a year ago. They don't have their state or their local approvals. The mayor has been unable, I guess the governor, I don't know if the governor's involved with it, but I think he is. And they have not been able to build their houses. It's a terrible thing.
As the U.S. moves into this AI race and you pursue more AI at home, you mentioned these electric plants. Are you interested in more nuclear as well, given that it seems AI is going to surpass the electric?
Okay. Kennedy Ford says, also Russia, China taking Greenland is not a good thing for us. So why are the trolls acting like they don't get it? Thank you. Electricity
production that the United States can produce on the timeline that AI is working on?
Well, AI is now going to make their own electricity, which is a beauty. I'm giving them a permit where they can make their own, they're going to make their own, they're going to become essentially a utility. They're going to make their own electricity, which is pretty amazing. And they're coming in with plants, you wouldn't believe it. You know, they're building these massive buildings, and the grid system, you know, can't handle that. We need double the electricity. With all that's being built now, we need more than double the electricity.
Okay, guys, Corey says, what happened to the Democrats? How can they possibly be so ridiculous? Okay, Butch says, Trump, 3 more years. I guess y'all have to deal with it.
That we have in the country now for everything. Think of that. Now, you can't do that unless they want to build their own plants. So we're giving approvals to build their own electric plants, and they're coming in with unbelievable electric plants. They're going to make their own electricity while they're building their plant. They're building an electric plant. That solves the problem.
You've had a goal for a long time to use tariff revenue to replace the income tax for Americans. Where are you in fulfilling that goal?
Well, I think if we can win this case, I think at some point in the not too distant future, it's an option. Or you can just make a lot of money and keep the money and spend it wisely and, you know, spend it on building the country, rebuilding and building the country. But no, I think the revenue will be such that we could, if we wanted, replace the income tax sometime in the not very distant future. You know, the income tax started in 1913. Until then, we had tariffs. Our country was the richest. If you go back to 1887, that was probably the single richest point that our country was ever in. And it was all tariff income. We didn't have an income tax. In 1913, they started with the income tax, and then you had a problem in 1929, a little thing called the Depression, which knocked the hell out of everyone. Then they tried bringing back tariffs a year later.
Okay, Pretty Ting says those questions were given to him ahead of the interview.
2 years later to save it, but that was it was gone. You'd say this sucker was gone, and you know, had I not been elected, you would have had, in my opinion, this would have been Venezuela on steroids. And by the way, Venezuela's an amazing thing that we just took place a couple of weeks ago.
Speaking of Venezuela, there was a weapon used, a sonic weapon, that took out many of the Cuban bodyguards that were used to defend Maduro. Lots of people saw the details about that weapon and were concerned. Is that something that Americans should be afraid of, something the United States is combating?
Yeah, it's something I don't want to, nobody else has it. We have weapons that nobody knows about. And I say it's probably good not to talk about them, but we have some amazing weapons. That was an amazing attack. Don't forget, that house was in the middle of...
They said this weapon caused people to freeze in time, right? Did you hear about the details of that? We're going to do a breakdown of that perhaps tonight. Thank you.
Of a fort, an army base, a big one, a lot of soldiers, and they came in and they did their job. We lost nobody.
Do you feel like Maduro is going to make some kind of deal when it comes to the charges he's up against, to give you intelligence about what the Russians and Iranians are doing in his country?
Well, I'm leaving that up to the Department of Justice. We'll see how it all goes. But look, he killed a lot of people. I mean, you look at what happened with the drugs. And he also was responsible, more than any other country, for emptying his jails, his mental institutions. Just emptied them out and brought them into the United States. And that's what we're talking when we talk about Minnesota, when we talk about all this crime stuff. We're getting rid of... Biden left us a mess.
Okay, guys. Yeah, Donald Trump is going to say, Biden left us a mess. He basically says that in every speech. Okay. Opening says, he said that he's considering another term. I put out a short within the last week. Go back through the shorts, and you'll see Donald Trump mentions, and they're talking about if we are at war, then you could pretty much avoid having another election, right? Or having an election at that time. And so it would be interesting. It'd be good for you to go check it out and try to understand what the president of the United States might be implying. So also, Stella says like, share, and subscribe to the channel as well.
Yes. We're getting rid of the mess. He had open borders. He had an open border policy. So Maduro came in and let all of his criminals into the United States because of Biden's open border. They didn't even question. They'd look at some people, they say, they're criminals. I don't want to get into it. They'd say, they're criminals. And it's, come on in.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is getting them out. And believe me, it takes a big part of my time. This was a self-imposed error. This was just a terrible... What they did to this country can never be forgotten. He was the worst president. And what Biden did, and you know, it's the people that use the auto pen, you can call it a lot of different things. But he was surrounded by people, the beautiful Resolute desk in the Oval Office, which I'll show you right after this. But it's beautiful, but it was surrounded by radical left lunatics. And what they did to this country can never be forgotten. They let in millions of criminals. You know, you have probably 25 million people that were let into this country, and no checking, no vetting.
25 million people. Do you believe that the Biden administration let in 25 million? That number keeps going up every time. It depends on who you're listening to, but the number is starting to rise. I remember when that number was around 3 million. Now I've heard all the way up to 30 million. What do you guys think?
Know anything? Many of them came from prisons. Many of them came from mental institutions, gang members, drug dealers. They just let them into our country.
Yeah.
And I've got.
Okay, Pretty Ting says it's inflated. Okay, a lot of people feel that way. Okay, all right. Thomas Robinson says even one too many. All right.
To get them out.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe.
Okay, very good. So that's it for today, folks. I just want to give you guys a landscape for those who are new to the channel. First off, if you could subscribe, that would be great. You could also double tap the screen if you want to contribute by liking the video so we could help grow, build the audience. As Kennedy says, we have the best chat on the YouTube, right? We have people coming together from both sides of the aisle, trying to have a discussion in a friendly way. It does get out of hand sometimes. And on Thursday nights, we have a tough crowd because Mama Flips comes through and she gives her words, and they're pretty strong words. But at the end of the day, we're just looking to have a meeting of the minds. Perhaps we could help each other elevate. Now, coming in the near future, we have Luigi Mangione. I'll be back in court for him. I'll be in court for Tyler Robertson in regards to the Charlie Kirk trial out in Utah. I'll also be covering Nicolas Maduro again. I was the only person in court for L.A. Reid, and it just so happened that they settled that day. Actually, Miss Knockout was there. She came too. We actually saw the plaintiff and was able to cover that case right at the courthouse. I'll be in Texas to cover Carmelo Anthony. He's the young man who took the life of the other teenager, allegedly, at the high school game. So all of these cases are coming down the pipeline, and we will be bringing you the information. When it comes to a lot of the federal cases and even the state level cases, they do not allow cameras in the courtroom. So under those circumstances, it's very important for us to go in, take good notes, and come back and help people to understand what's really happening in these cases, especially when it comes to Sean Diddy Combs. A lot of the information that came out during his trial, I was not prepared for. Neither was most of the people in the audience, especially the first witness in that case was actually a sex worker, a male sex worker. And I don't think anyone saw that coming because according to the media, there were all these celebrity white parties, but we had not heard about these freak-offs or these private events. So being able to bring back that information firsthand and also building some rapport with the audience so that you know that we're not just blowing smoke, but we're actually telling the truth. And only that can be determined over time by following different individuals, or just like in your personal life, after you deal with people over a certain amount of time, you start to understand, are they truthful? Are they just blowing smoke, or are they shady, or what, so forth. I'm going to go through a few more of the comments before we take off. We'll be back on Sunday. We're having a big snowstorm here, 17 to 18 inches. Can you imagine that, right? It's going to be out of control. But I think the entire East Coast, all the way down to Texas, is preparing for this big storm. Brickhouse says, I do see you attend trials. Yes, I do attend trials. We also cover the news every day, news at noon, Monday through Friday, usually starting at noon, and Eastern Standard Time. We could go on for an hour or two, depending on the day. Kennedy says, Daniel, I suggest you shut the. Oh, okay. All right. So there's a little bit going on there. You guys are going back and forth. Oh, John Stevenson is in the building. John is always here. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you for everybody who took the time to like the video, share, and also those who felt the need to subscribe to the channel. We've had so many people do that lately, and it's so amazing. Frank is back here. Frank says, hey, we're going to blame Trump for the snowstorm too. Yeah, we got to blame Donald Trump for everything. I must say, whether you like Trump or not, I've never seen anyone get so much done. It seems like the guy never sleeps. It's something I've never seen from the history of our presidents. Maybe Barack Obama, especially with expelling 1,000 people a day. I don't think Donald Trump has gotten to that measure yet. So, but he does get a lot done, I must say. All right. Tyler says Trump's keeping the hurricanes away. Okay, that's hilarious. He's controlling the weather. He's something like a demigod. Is that what you're saying? All right. John says the snow I can handle, but the blowing cold breeze. Oh, my goodness. It's brutal. And when I was out there the other day covering the nurses in New York City, while they were out there protesting, the wind was blowing extremely hard. And then behind the hospital, you saw the stairs that I had to go down, and the young man fell and hit his head on the ground. It's like they don't even bother to clean away the snow and ice from the steps. I don't understand what's happening in Harlem and New York City. That's a real problem, real big problem. Okay, Stella says like, share, and subscribe, and turn on your notifications to be notified for upcoming shows. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Tyler says, no, it's just funny to piss off the haters. Okay, so we have a lot of going back and forth, I see, in the audience, but we're trying to get along as much as possible. And we don't want to Charlie Kirk anybody. We don't want to go to violence. That's never a good thing, just over a conversation on a YouTube channel. Mark says, why does the January 6th committee have pardons for their criminal actions? I think the whole entire group was pardoned, right? He cleaned the slate for them all. But the individuals that went into that church, they're throwing the book at them. And I wouldn't be surprised if they keep trying to get Don Lemon. I think it's something we might see materialize, but I think he has a lot of support. I think he has a good argument, but it doesn't mean that the Department of Justice won't keep after him. Tyler says, love the channel. Thanks for the platform and shout out. Nice to have you here, Tyler. I hope you subscribe. Oh, you subscribe. That's awesome. Thank you very much. Gold Digger is working so hard. Thank you so much, Gold Digger. She says, glad you're enjoying the channel. Thank you so much for that. Okay. Elman says, hello, the difference between President Trump and President Obama is Obama did things quietly. Trump does things for publicity. All right. So that's the only reason that he operates. So that's his main goal. I wonder why so many people call Donald Trump a narcissist. I wonder why. Everybody's bringing that up in the last, I'd say in the last 2 weeks. I just see narcissist. I wonder why. Daniel says, what does Charlie have to do with this? Don Lemon is a mess. Has nothing to do with it per se, but if people get violent over arguments, then it turns into a Charlie Kirk type of situation. Burning says, ice, baby. So Burning, you want people kicked out of the country. Okay. Ice, baby. Strong supporter of ICE. Brickhouse says Obama was the one of the greatest presidents in history. Okay, good job. Thank you for that. Kennedy says it was an analogy. Okay, that's a private conversation you guys are having, going back and forth. Thank you guys for tuning in to News at Noon today. We covered a lot of ground, and we still have a few more subjects, so I will be back on to finish up all the things that we did not get a chance to cover. We actually missed Wednesday because I was in New York City at the hospital covering the nurses, who a lot of them have joined Watching the World. And I'm so happy to have you guys here participating. And we're going to have a special show for you on Sunday night at 7 p.m. Oh, we have our new moderator, Brian Cantrell, in the building. Brian says, thank you to my friends in the chat. Please double tap the screen to get the likes up. Thanks. Thank you, Brian. You're a gentleman and a scholar. All right. Let's see here. Melissa says, Thank the Lord for Trump. All right. She is happy with Donald Trump, just like a lot of people are. But the country is so divided because for every individual that loves Trump, you could find someone that despises him dearly. And that's just the way the politics works in our country. Bernie says, you can leave too if you don't like it. Okay, so that's towards someone. People are just going back and forth, having a tough time today. I'm not sure what that's all about. Okay, so you guys are arguing too. So many different arguments. I was just trying to find a few comments, perhaps even some questions. Okay, Cloud Bonner says, who owns ICE? Why did they get a $400 million contract? Okay, very good question. People are trying to say it has something to do with Israel, and that's the going trend, although we cannot confirm it, but that's just what people are saying. Okay, Daniel Price is back. He says these people thanking the Lord for Donald really are something else, considering Donnie is a complete, oh my goodness, not happy with Donald Trump. Oh, we have Candyman in the building. Candyman is always here. Shout out to you. I look forward to having you in the chat and supporting. He says ICE is a branch of the Homeland Security. Okay. All right. And they're getting more and more power each day. You better believe that. You better believe it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in today. That's all, folks. That's it. Let's see. Bernie says, I'm playing. Let me apologize for coming to your show without respect. Okay. Well, thank you. I didn't get a chance to see what was said, but at any rate, thank you for having some sort of change of heart at any rate. So thank you, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you over the weekend. During the snowstorm, we're going to try to do some, what do you call it? What's the word? Marathon shows. So we're going to do that this weekend during the snowstorm when we're not out shoveling snow, folks. Okay, let's see. Tyler gets, thank you, Tyler. That's awfully kind of you. I'll be back to watching the world. Thank you. You're welcome back anytime. Come back anytime. Okay. Gold Digger says, thank you. Respect always. Okay. Thank you for that. And yes, indeed. We're going to close with John Stevenson. Stay warm, everyone. That's a good way to close. Thank you and have a great day. We'll see you definitely Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you.
Different voices, but the same song. Building a world where we all belong. Kindness leading the way, breaking the chains. In the symphony of love, the flame remains. Embracing diversity, brighter days in sight. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. The colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.